Hey guys, I'm assuming if you're here, you might be a parent or a student trying to figure out some of these new multiplication strategies. And you might be like, why do I even need to learn these? I know how to multiply numbers. Well, I just want to say good job for even giving it a shot, even if you're a little grumpy about having to learn a new way. Maybe you'll end up liking it. Let's see. So we are going to show 4 different strategies here. We're going to start out with that traditional algorithm that we've been teaching for a long time. So for our traditional way, this is the way that it was taught for a long time. This is the way I learned. 76 times 54. We write it up and down like that. We go ahead and start with the ones on the bottom, multiply it by the ones on the top. So 4 times 6 gives me 24. I go ahead and carry that 2. 4 times 7 gives me 28. I add that 2 and get 30. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and scribble this guy out because I used it. Now, when I go on to the next one, because I need to multiply by this 5, right? I go ahead and put a placeholder here. Now, the reason I do that is because I'm actually multiplying by 50, right? We multiplied the 4. Now we're multiplying by the 50 of 54. So that is why we put that 0 there. All right, I do 5 times 6, which gives me 30. I carry the 3. 5 times 7, which gives me 35, plus 3 gives me 38. And then I go ahead and add these up. And I end up with 4,104. Okay, now there's probably some people out there that are like, it's not broken, don't fix it. Okay, there are great things about this, but it also has some limitations. I'm going to kind of tell you some pros and cons here. Some of the pros is this is super common. A lot of people learned this way and know this way, right? Another good thing about it is it doesn't take up a ton of space. Some of these other strategies might take up a little more space. So that's a pro. It doesn't take up a ton of space. Some of the cons are this carrying thing always gets me where you have to like either erase it or exit out when you go to the next one. Can get a little confusing. It can be kind of confusing why we add that 0. And this way just, it isn't super visual. It doesn't require a lot of number sense. All right. Which is, we like number sense as math teachers. All right. It's just a good thing. Okay. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying there are some other options that if you have a student who's struggling, these might really help them. Okay. The next one we are going to look at is lattice multiplication. There are going to be some students who love this. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we are going to draw a box. We're basically making a grid for each. So there's a box for each number. So I'm going to have 76 here, 54 on this side, and we just kind of make it look like a window because we're going to be multiplying these numbers like that. Okay. But for this lattice way, we also do these diagonal lines. I know it's about to get crazy. If you're rolling your eyes, it's all right. Just give it a chance. Okay. All right. The thing we do next is we are going to multiply these. So for this box, I'm going to multiply 6 times 4, which gives me 24. I put the 10s on top, the 1s on bottom, 24. Then I'm going to multiply 6 times 5, which is 30. 10s here, 1s here. Okay. 7 times 4, which is 28. 10s there, 1s there. 7 times 5, that's 35. 10s here, 1s here. Okay, I know this looks crazy, especially if you're used to this way, but watch this now. We're going to start on this side here, and we are going to add the diagonals. So right there we have 4. 8 plus 2 gives me 10. I'm going to carry the 1 up to the next one. 3 plus 5 plus 2 plus 1 gives me 11. Carry the 1. And 3 and 1 gives me 4. Look at that, guys. 4,000. 104. Okay, look at that. We got the answer. Okay, just like this one has pros and cons as well. One of the pros is it's nice to look at, right? It's pretty easy for students to figure out which numbers go in which boxes, okay? It's also nice in that it doesn't matter what order you multiply these numbers in, okay? If I wanted to do 7 times 5 first and then 6 times 4, it doesn't matter what order I do the actual multiplication in. And some students love that. Like if they're really confident with their 5s, they can do the 5s first and then focus on the ones they're not as confident about, okay? The one place where order does matter is when you are adding them up. You need to start on this side because of that carrying that may happen. But the multiplication you can do in any order. Some of the negatives to this one is it also doesn't require a lot of number sense. It's kind of magical. Maybe that's not the best word, but it works out and it's kind of hard to explain like why it works to a student. Like why do these diagonals work out? It's great that it does, but on its own, it's kind of not great standalone. It's awesome if they understand the number sense and then use it as a strategy. All alone, it's not the strongest strategy, in my personal opinion, okay? But some students absolutely love it and thrive with this strategy. Okay, let's look down here. On this one, we are going to do partial products. With partial products, I am going to write it like I did up here, one on top of the other, 76 times 54. But this time, I'm going to kind of break it down. I'm going to think of 76 as 70 plus 6. And I'm going to think of 54 as 50 plus 4. Okay, thinking of it that way, 4 needs to be multiplied by the 6 and the 70, and 50 needs to be multiplied by the 6 and the 70. Okay, so first I'm going to do 4 times 6 and get 24. So that was my 4 times 6. Then I'm going to do 4 times 70, which is 280. You just do 4 times 7 and add the 0, right? So that was my 4 times 70. Great, the 4 is done. Now I'm going to do 50 times 6, which gives me 300. And 50 times 70, 5 times 7 is 35, and then add those 2 zeros, so 3,500. Oh, I forgot to write this. Dang it. This was 50 times 6, and this was 50 times 70. Okay, and then we're going to add these. So when I add these, I end up with 4, 10, 11, 4, and I get 4,104. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. You're like, internet lady, that was a lot of writing and a lot of work, okay? Pros and cons. This one has that magical number sense that is so good for students. You see what is happening, what the multiplication is doing, and what numbers need to be multiplied by each other. One thing to keep in mind is if a student really likes this strategy, they're going to get to the point where they can just write this part. They don't have to write this. They don't have to write this. That was more for the sake of this video so you could see what I was doing. But once a student gets pretty good at this, they can go through it pretty fast. And I could say it might be even faster than this way potentially. All right. So pros and cons of this one. Number sense, it's visual. You understand what you're doing. You're multiplying with a lot of zeros. And so students love that. Okay. Some of the negatives is it might take up a little more space than something like this. And it's not as common. Not as many people know it. But hey, maybe that'll change at some point. Okay. There's that one. Partial products. Last one is called open array. You'll also sometimes hear it called an area model or window. Okay. For this one, we get to draw another box. And I bet you're excited. You're like, yes, I needed more than one box in my life today. So here is our box. We are thinking of one side as 76, but instead of writing it like this, I'm going to write it as 70 plus 6. Okay. And then on this side, 54, I'm going to write as 50 plus 4. Okay. This is very similar to partial products. It's just basically a bit more visual way to do partial products. Okay. So I'm going to multiply these, and it doesn't matter which one I do first. Okay. So I can do 50 times 70 first, which is going to give me 3,500. Then I can do 50 times 6, which is 300. 70 times 4, which is 280. And 6 times 4, which is 24. All right, you probably guessed what we do next. We are going to add these. 3,500 plus 300 plus 280 plus 24. Okay. When I add those up, guess what I end up with, guys? 4,104. Woohoo! Okay, so do you see how these two were very similar? One was just a bit more visual, okay? So pros and cons of this one. Again, the number sense is thick with this guy, which is why I really like it. I feel like students understand what they're doing with this one. It's very visual, and I love that. Some of the cons of it is it does take up some more space. And again, it's not as common as our traditional guy over here. But again, some students thrive with this. Okay. All right. I want to thank you for watching this, because I know it's hard to learn new things when maybe you're used to a certain way. But I would just challenge you to give this a chance and see if you end up really liking one of these. Okay. All right. Hopefully this helped. I will also link a playlist where I go more in depth with each of these strategies. All right. Thanks.